I am Ray Gehring, guitarist here in Brooklyn, New York, and I play guitar on albums for emergency alert systems. So have you ever thought about modes and asked yourself, how do I use these? Where do they come from? How do I put them in music and make them sound great like my guitar heroes do, or the people I admire the most? How do they make use of these modes and I can't seem to make anything from them? Well, modes are kind of where the magic in the major scale happens. And it's just a series of intervals, and you'll see that as I go over it. But it's the distance between notes that really gives it each one a different flavor. Think of this. All right, if we have a C major scale, all right, each of these modes basically comes from this collection of notes. Think of C as the parent of the scale. All right, it's a family. This is the head of the family. So even the Aeolian mode is the relative minor of C major. A minor exists on its own, and C major exists on its own, but A minor and C major share the same notes, because you could almost say this is the other parent or the uncle or aunt. So it's a relative of C major, and C major is a relative major of A minor. And each of these has a different character, a different feel, a different personality, different mood, and can be used with different combinations too. So each mode, though it belongs to the same family, it has its own independence and its own character simply by how it begins its journey. So in order to fully get modes, you need to understand the relationship between whole tones and half tones, and that's what I'm going to be going over in this video. So this video is a follow-up from the last one about how we spell out the modes first. In this video, I'm going to talk about the intervals and the relationships of whole tones and half tones in each mode. All right, I'm going to start with the C Ionian. Before I start, yeah, that happened. Found these lights downstairs. Here in Brooklyn, people give stuff away all the time. And I figured this might look a little better. Anyway, so see, here's the C major. The first mode, Ionian, which is just a C major scale, we start off with a whole step right away. C to D is a whole step. D to E is a whole step. E to F is a half step. F to G is a whole step. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. And B back to C is a half step. So a major scale, in its purest form, a C major scale, begins by whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So any time that you would simply see a WWH, or half, of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, you would know that is a major mode. That's a major key, or the Ionian mode. You can apply any key to it and just follow this order of steps. I'm going to quickly show you the chromatic scale so we know that B doesn't have a sharp and E doesn't have a sharp. And that means that F does not have a flat and C does not have a flat. So a whole tone equals 2 frets. And a half step equals 1 fret. Forwards or backwards. We're off to the Dorian, the second mode. The Dorian is a minor scale, a minor sound, and it goes like this. So we begin with a whole step. E to F is a half step. F to G is a whole step. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. And we know B to C is a half step. There's no sharp for a B. And C to D is a whole step. Ending back to the root from the seventh is a whole step. This is a minor mode. And minor mode generally is indicated by when you see a whole to a half step. It becomes a minor third. Let's leave that as it is for now. So D to E is a whole step, E to F is a half step. That determines it's going to be some kind of minor, though the Phrygian and Locrian are minor and they start off with a half step. But anyway, so when you see this order of interval values, that just means this is a Dorian scale, and it's kind of given away by the sixth. D natural minor is a B flat. So it would change the relationship from a half step to a whole step here, but finish the same. That's about as confusing as it gets. Once you learn the different modes based on any particular letter of the scale, it all repeats except 12 different ways in 12 different colors. So this is the Dorian mode. Learn it, love it. We can use it so much. It's one of these modes that likes to travel to other keys a lot. Anyway, any mode can travel outside its home key and, play with other scales, other keys. After all, it's their cousin, just a different name. All right, I think this explains Dorian. All right, so now we're set up for the Phrygian, which is the third mode. And we'll write it out here. All right, so the Phrygian mode always starts off with a half step. F to G is a whole step. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. B to C is a half step. C to D is a whole step. D to E is a whole step. You see how this lays itself out? Again, anytime you would just see these values, you would know that was a Phrygian. Here we have, it starts off with a half step, a minor second. But that's what's going to give it its character. There's a lot we can do with this. And if you're in Phrygian, what's cool is we can turn this into an E major chord and really, it's cool. So again, really where it is most different is right here on the F. It's beginning with a half step. B to C, it has a regular fifth, nothing strange about this is fine. This half step doesn't really push it into different territory. It's a natural sixth, meaning it's not sharp. So again, we have the Phrygian. Now, off to the Lydian. Lydian is the fourth degree. All right, spells out like this. What we're looking at, F to G, whole step, G to A, oops, G to A, it's a whole step, A to B is a whole step, B to C is a half step, C to D, whole step, D to E, whole step, E to F is a half step. E to F is, this is a major seventh at the end. If it was a flatted seventh, it would be E flat. So, the main difference between the Lydian, which is a major scale, but F has its own key, and in the key of F major, the B has a flat. But here, the B does not. All right, so that makes it a raised fourth or sharp 11, and it has a wonderful sound. So anytime you would see, again, this going on, you would know that was a Lydian just by W, 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 half step, W, W, half step. That's the Lydian. It's this note that really gives it its character and distinguishes itself from the key of F major. Now, the Mixolydian mode, which is the 5th scale degree, and it goes like this. All right, it begins with a whole step, then off to another whole step. B to C is a half step. C to D is a whole step. D to E is a whole step. E to F is a half step. F to G is a whole step. Giving that its dominant 7. 2 frets away from the G, that's a flatted 7th. If you have F sharp to G, like in the regular key of G major, it's a half step away, making it a major 7. Of course, the primary chord we use this over is a G7. This mode itself, there's so much inside of it that we can use, that we can disguise, that we can make into melody, make into rhythmic patterns, make into so many things that give us mileage. And mileage is what gives us flow in terms of creativity and just playing. So there you go. My goal about modes is just to give the recipe and then for you to digest it, devour it, and make it your own. So this is the Mixolydian mode. And again, you see this order of half steps, whole steps. You would know it's a Mixolydian mode. All right, just 2 more left. 2 more left, like I'm teaching this to 5th graders who don't have any patience. Sorry. Is the Aeolian. Aeolian is also called the relative minor. All 12 notes have major keys and minor keys associated with it. So even though this is a minor, A minor and C major have 0 sharps and 0 flats. So A minor is effectively the same thing as C major, except that it begins on A and ends on A. All right, A to B, right away is a whole step. B to C, half step. Again, indicating sort of a minor beginning. C to D is a whole step, definitely a minor. D to E, whole step. E to F, half step. F to G, whole step. And then whole step, which is a minor 7th. All right, G sharp would be a major 7th. G is a minor 7th. So we begin with a whole, half, then off to a whole, half, whole at the end. And anytime you see this, this is a regular minor scale. A minor and C major are the same thing. So we're lucky there. We don't have to worry about any sort of different whole tone, half tone relationship. But what differentiates A minor and let's say A Dorian from the key of G is you would have an F sharp here, making that a major 6th, a raised 6th instead of a flatted 6th or natural 6th. So the major difference between other minor scales is going to lie here on the F. All right, that's the Aeolian scale. And the last mode is the Locrian. There you go. And begins on the B. Much like the Phrygian, starting off with a half step, so does the Locrian. So that starts off with a half step. D to E, C to D is a whole step. D to E is a whole step. E to F, just like here, is a half step. F to G is a whole step. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. Also a minor seventh, or a flatted seventh. The B Locrian, it has a minor third, though it has a flatted fifth, which makes it a diminished. This is a form of a diminished scale, although it's more of a half diminished scale. What we really call it is the Locrian. The Locrian is the Locrian. It's the last member of the family. It's the youngest one. You know, it can hardly take a whole step, so it has to do a half step at first. And then you see finally by the end, it's walking. So yeah, these are the modes. Even made up scales, they'll still have their own modes. Let me give you an example. Let's just pick some notes at random. B flat. Without looking, I don't know what this is going to spell. I could probably figure it out, but it doesn't matter. So again, these notes are just random, but I know that my next mode, we'd call that the second mode. This would be the third mode, fourth mode, etc. Not even knowing how these notes are lining up, I could plot these out and create more melodic ideas. I think it's a pretty easy concept. I don't think you have to think about how they're built, how the whole steps and half steps stack up once you see them, or you know that a half step is 1 fret on the guitar, whole step is 2 frets on the guitar. You'll have no problem mapping these out. And the last thing I'm going to say is, so leave a comment below if there's certain tricks that you had that just made forgetting it impossible. We're looking for things that are so obvious that we have something to hang on to. And having something to hang on to makes it a lot easier to reach for other things. Hey, thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So if this video changed your life, made everything extraordinarily brilliant, well then please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.